good morning, good afternoon, good night. I don't know what time you're looking at this. In this slideshow, we're going to look at prehistoric art from 3 different time periods. We're going to look at the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic ages. Paleolithic art is Old Stone Age art. The Paleolithic period divides into 3 different segments. We have the later Old Stone Age, which dates from around 35,000 to 8,000 BC. We have the Aurignacian period, which dates from around 35,000 to 22,000 BC, so that's a subcategory of the later Old Stone Age. And then another subcategory is the Magdalenian period, which dates from around 15,000 to 8,000 BC. Paleo is a prefix that means old, and lithic comes from the Greek term lithos, which means stone. The Mesolithic period is the Middle Stone Age, and the Neolithic period is the New Stone Age. Now, the dates that I've given you may differ slightly from some of the texts that you may consult. Everybody has their own opinion as to exactly where these things fit in. The first image that we're going to consider is the entrance to the Axial Gallery found in Lascaux, France. Dates from around 15 to 10,000 BC. Now, when the cave paintings were first discovered late in the 19th century, scholars couldn't believe that they were painted during the Paleolithic period. The reason for their disbelief lies in the technical mastery of the works. They couldn't believe artists from this far back had this kind of skill in representing the animals that we see here. The paintings went undiscovered for such a long period of time because they are located in such remote areas of the caves. Now, the paintings themselves cannot be seen as merely decorative for a number of reasons. Here we have a general view of the nave, and this helps clue us in on those reasons. First off, Paleolithic man apparently didn't live in the caves, as there exists no hearths or garbage dumps that are associated with early man. And the second thing, and I think you can get a sense of this in looking at this image, these paintings, these images, were not in easily accessible areas. You can see just how difficult it is to get into some of these areas, as evidenced by the stalactites and the stalagmites seen in this image from the Chauvet cave that was not discovered until 1994, and it has some really remarkable paintings in it as well. If my son were here looking at this slide, he might say, "Ooh, that's nasty." This is the left wall of that axial gallery that we started out with from Lascaux, France. Many of the images in these caves were added to over very long periods of time. Thousands of years, in fact. You know, we think it's remarkable today if an artist works on a painting over several years. And here we have thousands of years elapsing between some of the first images that we see and some of the last images that we see on this one wall. The animals themselves were painted in what we believe to have been sacred places or sacred areas that are identified by negative handprints. Here's an example of one of those negative handprints. This is from that Chauvet cave where we saw the stalactites and the stalagmites. These handprints are thought to have been done from a much earlier time, sort of the first evidence of mankind leaving their mark. This negative handprint in particular is thought to have dated from around 30,000 BC. Here is an engraved head of a horse from the Lascaux cave, 15 to 10,000 BC again. Now, cave painting may have gotten its start from ancient people tracing in the dirt with their fingers or in wet clay on cave walls. And as we look at clouds and search for images, the ancient artists may have looked in existing rock formations or cracks in walls, and that may have reminded them of the animals that they depended on for food. Thus, painting probably evolved from sculpture and engraving as seen in this image. Now here we are back to the Hall of Bulls from Lascaux, 15 to 10,000 BC. The question is, why paint animals as opposed to painting other human beings? Well, the two major reasons that the early cave painters painted animals is they did it for luck in the hunt, and they also did it for continued proliferation of the herd. Both of these aspects were integral to man's survival. When we spoke earlier about these images being added to over long periods of time, you can look at how some of the animals are done in slightly different styles. Some of them are merely outline drawings, while others are more tonal in their approach. This is a bison pierced with arrows from the caves at Nyon, France. This image gives credence to the idea that these images were in a sense altars for magical ceremonies to aid hunters. This is the red cow and Chinese horse, also from Lascaux, 15 to 10,000 BC. Now, prehistoric man was remarkably forward-looking, as evidenced by this slide. What's unusual about the horse seen in the lower right quadrant? Looks like it's perhaps pregnant. So they're thinking, this animal needs to give birth to more animals so that we can have them to hunt and depend on. This is called 3 Cows and 1 Horse. Hey, what a great title. And this is from the ceiling of the Axial Gallery in Lascaux, France. Now, man is made reference to, in this particular image, by the tectiforms, which appear here. A tectiform is a man-made structure, and you can see it almost right in the center of the image here. Now, these geometric signs can symbolize houses, or even traps or snares that are used to catch the animals. Additionally, these signs are also the predecessor to primitive writing. Now, looking at this red cow here, you might notice something unusual about the handling of the bull's head in both this image and in the previous slide. What's employed here is called twisted perspective. And this twisted perspective was often used in an attempt to make the animal seem whole, W-H-O-L-E. And this was important if the animal painted was to take on the identity of the real animal sought in the hunt. By twisted perspective, I mean that you see the head of the animal in profile, yet the horns on the animal are turned around to face us, so that you see both of the horns. This sort of approach to making art is something that you're probably most familiar with in the Egyptian approach to image making. Here is a bear from the Hall of Bulls from the Chauvet Cave, 30,000 BC again. Now, the beauty and sensitivity of these images is remarkable. Consider this. They were done from memory, because they're deep in the caves, and you're certainly not going to ask a bear, hey, if I give you something to eat, will you pose for me for a couple hours this afternoon? Things are a little different for artists today. The sureness of hand and delicacy of touch are characteristics that we much admire in art today. So outside of the historical importance of the art and the reasons for its existence, we can appreciate it on a purely artistic level. Now the goals in this representation and others, that of modeling form, using an expressive range of values, don't differ greatly from both modern and traditional drawings that are acknowledged as masterworks.